Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne. And when I was a little girl, all I wanted was to get a book of mine published. I was so fixated on this idea that I really idolized Christopher Paolini because he published Aragon really young. So I knew getting published was something that I wanted. But how? Fast forward to today, and my debut graphic novel, Unfamiliar, is in bookstores, libraries, and online. I've done signings for it. So in a little less than a year since it came out, I'm finally beating back imposter syndrome enough that I can make this video and hopefully shed some light on this whole secretive process. I'm also going to be answering a bunch of questions that I asked you guys on Twitter and the community tab. So just as a disclaimer, this is just how things worked out for me. This is not like a guide on how to get your work published. It's going to be very individual, but I thought if I showed you my case, it might be helpful to you. So the first couple questions I wanted to answer and the things I should go over right at the start are the basics of how this happened and what kind of publishing this even is. A lot of you guys either assumed that I was talking about self-publishing or you asked things like how much did it cost to get the book published? Was it financially worth it? That sort of thing. So right off the bat, I want to clarify that this is a traditional publishing deal, which means I didn't have to pay anything. In fact, I got paid in advance, which is basically just a chunk of change that the publisher gives to you while you're working on the book, and then you will get a portion of the book sales after you have sold enough books to pay out that advance. So that's the way it worked for me. I am being published through Andrews McMeel, which is a book publisher that has done a lot of like anthologies and compilations of comics, and they're distributed with Simon & Schuster. And I was connected to them by Tapas, which is the website that I hosted my comic on. It was me and two other comics that were sort of like bundled together on Tapas, and then Tapas helped kind of like sell it to traditional publishers. So that's how it worked out for me. I did not pay a single cent. Basically, I just agreed that it was okay for Tapas to show my comic to other people, and since they had more sort of like business acumen and relationships that I did not have, they almost worked kind of like an agent in that way, even though it was definitely a little different than that. Some of you guys have asked me how to find a literary agent, or if I have a literary agent. I actually do not, and that is not good. Not something I would encourage. Having a literary agent is hugely helpful if you're trying to sell your story to a publisher. I'm still looking for one, and I would love to have a literary agent. I just don't yet, which I know is kind of bizarre considering that my book is in so many places, but that's just how things worked out for me. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of your guys' questions, and this should sort of fill out the entire story of how this all happened. What motivated you to traditionally publish instead of self-publishing? The book I'm writing is my life essence, and I don't want anyone else tampering with it, so I'm planning to self-publish. I got a couple different questions like this. The reason that I went with a traditional publisher is firstly because it was always my dream to see my book in bookstores, and I think that typically with self-publishing, it's pretty hard to make those kind of connections all by yourself. I obviously couldn't just call up Barnes and Nobles or Walmart or libraries and just tell them that I had printed out a book myself and that I wanted them to put it in their stores. I don't have those business relationships, and I also personally, I just felt like it would be a better choice for me. I didn't actually have any issues with my publishers trying to change the content of my work. The most that they did in regards to changing Unfamiliar was doing some like minor editing, like places where I had typos, or sometimes they removed some like ums and uhs from my character's dialogue. They let me put them back in if I wanted to, so in a couple places, particularly with Pinion, because it's such a huge part of the way that she talks, I had them retain them, but in other places I kind of agreed that it made it less, even though I liked it stylistically, it did make it a less clunky reading experience to remove them. So in my case, I was very lucky. This is going to be different for everybody, but to me it just made a lot more sense to have them publish it. I also didn't want to have to put down a huge amount of money publishing it myself, or have to deal with my my like house being full of copies of my own book. Typically if you're self-publishing, you're going to have to do like a convention circuit. Given the opportunity to be distributed with Simon & Schuster, who does distribution for Andrews McMeel, my publisher, it just seemed like a very well worth it for me. And especially considering the efforts that they took to help promote my book, it definitely was worth it for me. How involved were you in the bookmaking process? What's the process like? How much did you have to redo for the book? And is there anything I would have done differently? These are all really great questions. So in the bookmaking process, I was pretty involved. The only parts that I had completely hands off, I would say, were some like layout adjustments. The publisher helped shift around my art to make sure that it was a little more consistent inside, like literally like just the margins and that kind of thing. They didn't really change my art at all. And like I said, there was pretty minimal like dialogue editing. I didn't have to redo too much. There were a couple instances where I lost the original source file of my art, and this was so embarrassing. This is just because I had been working on Unfamiliar for so long, over so many different periods of my life, that I had a lot of files that were on random different bits of my technology, like different computers. And that resulted in me having to comb through a lot of old tablets and computers trying to find original raw files. In some cases, I couldn't find them, and it took me weeks that I wouldn't have had to take if I was just more organized. If there was anything I would have done differently, it would have been to put all of my files in order, named in a way that makes sense, on some kind of cloud service like Dropbox. And I will always do that in the future because that was so stressful for no reason. When you're making a comic, do you need to have the full comic ready to present to someone, or do you need enough concept art practice pages and a full story to begin? So in my case, I already had all the parts for volume 1 done, but I was not finished with volume 2, so I'm kind of the weird in-between situation where I experience both sides of it. If you already have the comic completed, there's going to be less of a chance that they're going to be making big edits or adjustments to the story and art, which may be a plus for some people, but you might be more likely to get a publishing deal if it is not completely finished, because a lot of the times publishers do want to have some kind of sway and like editorial power. Obviously in my case, this wasn't super relevant. By the time that I was connected with them, there were only like 3 chapters or 2 chapters left of Unfamiliar, so they didn't make any push to change Unfamiliar really at all. When it comes to me for next time, I think I will probably try to get an agent and a publisher interested before I have my next story completed, just because that is more typical, I think. And I actually do think that like having a professional editor helping me out might make for better art. How did they help you out with marketing? I know you already have your own online following, but what kinds of marketing campaigns did they launch for you? And do you feel that they were sufficient? This is a fascinating and a really great question, and this is going to vary so much from person to person, so this is 100% just my experience. So I had 2 relatively major, I would say like marketing events that happened. One was through Tapas and one was through AMP, my publisher. So the first one was that Tapas brought me to Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle, which is a comic book convention in the main convention center. I signed posters there and got to talk to fans, and it was a really great promotional opportunity. Now, funnily enough, there actually weren't books of mine to sell there, just because we had some delays because of a paper shortage. You guys might remember if you pre-ordered volume 1 that your shipping date kept getting pushed. That was because of this insane paper shortage. So I was just signing posters at that, but that was really helpful. I feel like it definitely got some excitement up for Unfamiliar's release. The other thing that I did was with Andrews McMeel, they set up a signing at the Strand, which is a legendary bookstore in New York City. That was so exciting, like just taking the plane by myself to go to a signing. I stayed in this really cool hotel called the Moxie, which like they have tiny rooms, but it's so fashionable and cute and it was an amazing experience. I ate pizza, I went to museums, and then I got to go to the Strand and talk to so many of you guys, answer questions, and sign a lot of copies of Unfamiliar. That was so exciting. They had a employee from the Strand actually back there helping me, who opened up the book to the right pages for me, and I just like went through signing super fast. It was so exciting. And then I remember at the time, like while I was nervously waiting in the green room, I was texting my sister, like basically so anxious, like for some reason I was really worried that no one was going to show up, but the room was almost completely full, and yeah, when I came out to this like totally magical room and got to talk to everybody, it was just like, that was probably my biggest like dream come true moment. It was so exciting. It was the first time that people were actually able to buy the book, so it was just a huge day for me in general. And even though I was having like actually a really hard time in my personal life during this period, it really cheered me up and was just like completely life-changing. But anyway, those were the two biggest like author events that I did for Volume 1. And AMP and Tapas did other things to help promote the book as well. I was set up with a virtual event called LibraryCon, where me alongside 3 other comic creators who make comics about witches did this panel for a bunch of librarians, and that was really important as well, because the library ecosystem is actually hugely important for book sales, and also it's just important for me because, like, I don't know about you guys, but I spent a lot of time in the library when I was younger, and I really wanted my book to be in libraries for that reason. I wanted people to have access to Unfamiliar always. You know, I mean, obviously I put it out for free for most of its lifespan, so having it in libraries was really important to me. Yeah, so basically the short story is they did a lot. I think it was sufficient. Certainly I felt like it was well worth it, and I was very grateful, because I know that in a lot of cases, even with big publishers, sometimes they don't do a lot of promotion and you have to do it all by yourself. So I was very happy with that, and I did help out myself, of course, with a lot of marketing as well, just trying to make sure that you guys knew as much as I could tell you without being too annoying, that I had a book coming out and where you could pre-order it and where you could buy it. One of the things that surprised me the most about the promotional cycle was how important pre-orders were. I didn't realize that, like, pre-orders make such a difference in the lifespan of your book. Basically, the reason for that is that, like, pre-orders inform the bookstore that's doing the pre-orders about how many copies they should actually keep on hand, or if they should even keep your book in stock. So if you can get more people to pre-order the book, it's going to change whether or not it's even available to people, and it kind of allows for that more like serendipitous, like someone stumbling across it. Whereas if you don't get a good amount of pre-orders, you might lose that opportunity and have people, you know, having to special order it all the time, which is just not good, obviously. Volume 2 is actually available for pre-order right now. You can click on the link in the description if you would like to pre-order it, and then you also get it, you know, first, so that's cool. It's actually coming out on time this time, so it'll be out in October. If you're planning on buying it, please pre-order it. It helps out so much. The next question, will you make more books? Absolutely I will. I'm already working on making my next comic. I'm very excited about it. I would like to, like I said, have a literary agent or some kind of agent and a publisher lined up before I have this one finished, because like I said, I feel like it will make the book better, but in the meantime I will just keep working on it and make sure it is as strong as possible of a pitch, and I will try to let you guys in on that as much as I can as well, because I like showing you guys what I'm working on, so keep your eyes peeled for that. My question is, how much money did Unfamiliar make up until this point? Thanks. I picked this question out because I feel like this is the type of question that people in these videos almost always don't answer, and I can see why. Like, things are always awkward when it comes to money, but the funny truth is I actually don't know. It is important for you guys to know that when it comes to publishing and that sort of thing, it's not like the second it gets published you're going to get a big windfall of money. You will have your advance, and then after that it might be a long time before you actually find out how much you're going to be making on royalties, and it's going to change a lot. What I do know is that Unfamiliar Volume 1 has already had a reprint, which is a very, very good sign. And regardless of how things shake out financially, I am so happy with the distribution and how far Unfamiliar has gotten. What was it like to hold that first copy in your hands? This was a completely life-changing moment for me. I cried the first time that I held it. My hands were shaking. It was absolutely insane. It's just something that I've been thinking about since I was probably like in 3rd or 4th grade, I would say. And it's something I dreamed about so much as a bookworm and as somebody who was so passionate about comics for so long. So it's hard to even put into words, but it was magical, I would say. If you had a question that was not answered here, comment it. If the videos just come out, I will try to answer as many questions in the comments as I possibly can. And again, if you would like to pre-order Volume 2, it would be a huge help to me. There's a link, obviously only if you're in the financial place to be buying books right now. And thank you for your part in making this a possibility for me. Without a doubt, my social media presence helped me get published, so in a lot of ways you guys are a huge part of why this dream came true for me, and I will be grateful for the rest of my life. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Huge thank you to my wonderful patrons, including Stan Soup, Liddy Savior, Roro, Birds on a Wire, Emmy Lightning, Rayon, Sporple Matt, Brandon Stark, CB, Lucy Amajiki, Liv, Salty Jackrabbit, Raven's Crow, Saucelot, T-Hill Music, Jabber Dabber Doo, Gender Was Stolen, Kadaria, Astral Fox Art, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Cutie Pie, Ruined Rain Crow, Ice Cream Pal, Cola, JJ Jade, and of course, Liv Blah Blah Blah.